It's time for some more of the Entrepreneur Mind 100 Essential Beliefs, Characteristics, and Habits of Elite Entrepreneurs by Kevin D. Johnson. And this is out of the strategy portion. 4. All risk isn't risky. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. Warren Buffett, businessman, investor, philanthropist. Among the several definitions of an entrepreneur, some are pretty good while others are downright terrible. Regardless, a common word among them seems to be risk, which is what truly defines an entrepreneur. The following simple definition by Merriam-Webster is one of the best. An entrepreneur is one who organizes, manages, and assumes the risk of a business or enterprise. The focus that then becomes understanding risk and how it factors into being an entrepreneur. Risk, as defined by the same dictionary, is the possibility of loss. What's most interesting about this definition, and contrary to popular belief, is that it doesn't impart a negative value judgment. The judgment or the definition merely declares the possibility of loss. In other words, an event can have a 1% or a 99% probability of loss. Our response to an interaction of these two levels of risk make all the difference. Entrepreneurs having a higher tolerance for risk than the average person when it comes to starting and running a business. According to the Kaufman Foundation, less than 80% of businesses last after the fifth year of existence. Moreover, according to Saratoga Venture Finance, less than 1% of business ever go public. Despite these daunting odds, entrepreneurs are not deterred from pursuing their goals. This higher tolerance of risk among entrepreneurs, though, doesn't tell the whole story. Entrepreneurs surely take on high probability of failure, but they don't necessarily like to gamble. Instead, they take calculated risks, stacking the deck in their favor. They find ways to minimize or to spread the risk of their endeavors to increase the odds of their success, or to minimize the odds of loss. Entrepreneurs have the confidence in themselves to avoid and to overcome obstacles that could cause great loss, whether through expert knowledge, social relations, or even personal wealth. For example, the media tend to emphasize the Cinderella stories of CEOs who have achieved great success despite unfavorable odds. However, a closer look at these stories often reveal that the CEOs took calculated risks and had solid backup plans. In his book, The Reluctant Entrepreneur, Michael Masterson describes how Bill Gates is frequently perceived as a college dropout who took a huge risk to start Microsoft. Masterson criticizes this perception and paints a very practical picture of Gates, one that portrays him as a methodologist, brilliant youngster who always planned to return to school if his business venture didn't work out. Perhaps Gates' decision to leave Harvard would have been riskier and thus worthy of the media spin if he weren't so smart and didn't have the great financial resources that healed parents gave him. In short, all risk isn't risky, and entrepreneurs know this rule. Put it another way, the reality of becoming an entrepreneur isn't so much about the high probability or risk of failure as much as your ability to beat the odds. Ironically, the entire world has learned this lesson from the Great Recession. The opposite of this rule is just as valid. What people thought was safe is no longer as safe as they thought. College won't graduate. Sorry, college won't guarantee you a high-paying job in the field you studied once you graduate. A corporate job doesn't mean you won't get fired. Enrolling in your company's 401k plan doesn't mean that you will have more money in the bank than when you started the plan. If the world continues on the path of economic decline, pursuing your entrepreneur dreams will be less risky than getting a job. And that's not such a bad thing. So it's kind of interesting that today's reading was about risk and entrepreneurs because at some point in the last few days when I was listening to some video from Evan Carmichael while working out, one of the statistics was that an entrepreneur will fail like 3.5 or 3.8 times before they have a successful venture. So almost four, but not quite four failures before success. And obviously that, could vary. It could be skewed by someone that's tried 20, 30, 50 times, and then also skewed by the person that tried once and succeeded. That 3.8 or whatever it was is the average amount of failures before an entrepreneur succeeds. Um, but yeah, you know, this reading from the entrepreneur mind, it's all about taking calculated risk, kind of studying and understanding risk, but also I guess action is important too because um, you can try to plan for risk a certain amount, but before you start getting stuck in analysis paralysis. So um, you want to look at risk, try to understand it, try to find ways to offset it, but ultimately take action. So hopefully you found some value in this. Keep checking back for some more business/entrepreneur discussion and some more financial related videos. Thanks and have a good day.